So here we are, it's Holy Week. And what an extraordinary Holy Week this is going to be for each and every one of us, as for the first time in our history at least, we have not had the opportunity to gather together and celebrate this Holy Week in communion. And so all of us entering into this most holy of weeks, just in that aspect, has our own cross to carry. And as I give this homily for Palm or Passion Sunday, I hope that you've had a chance to look at the scriptures for today, because there's actually two Gospels, which is what I'm going to focus on here. There's the one that we would read if we were here together at the entrance into the church, the procession of Jesus into Jerusalem, and then there's the one that the Passion, that obviously we read when the Gospel would typically take place. And I encourage you to look them up, because I'm going to draw a few points from them to demonstrate that so much of this Passion isn't just about the physical torment that Jesus went through. That's a big part of it. But the gospel writers go to great lengths to demonstrate how lonely and how saddened and how grieved Jesus was through this whole thing. And so he begins by riding into Jerusalem, into his place of death, where he's going to be crowned king. And make no mistake about it, he's crowned king in and through the cross, never despite the cross. And he comes riding in on a donkey, the colt, the lowest of animals, not even a chariot or not even a horse on a colt. He participates in the Passover with his apostles, one who has already planned to betray him, and the other who will deny him 3 times. He goes out into the Garden of Gethsemane, where he falls prostrate in utter agony, and so grief-stricken that he calls out to the Father, "If it's possible, let this chalice pass, let this cross pass. If not, your will, not my will." Then he returns to find his disciples sleeping. How terrible that must have been for him, that in his deepest moment of agony up to this point, even they weren't able to stay awake and be with him. As he leaves the garden, Judas comes forth and betrays him with what? A kiss. Are you kidding me? And then in the one attempt to offer to fight back, one of his disciples pulls a sword and strikes a Roman guard. And even up to this point, Jesus refuses to return violence for violence, as he tells them to put his sword back into his scabbard. And so here he is, surrounded by people that don't understand what he's going through, don't understand what his messianic identity is about, don't understand his mission, and are questioning who he is. And he is completely, utterly alone, grief-stricken, saddened to the point of death, and nobody around him gets it. And then finally, he's going to become the ultimate enemy as they put him to death. And this is the Messiah that we worship. Can you think of a better portrait of a victim? I don't know if you can, but I sure can't. And then finally they beat him, as we all know, to within an inch of his life, and they hang him on a cross. And in Matthew's gospel, before he dies, he utters these last words, my God, why have you abandoned me?" And in somewhere in that cry from Jesus Christ, especially in these times, we find our own cry too. And surely he said this from the cross, because Matthew went to great lengths to record it in the original Aramaic, the original tongue of Jesus Christ. "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani." My God, why have you forsaken me? My God, why have you abandoned me? My God, why have you left us behind? This wasn't something added to the Gospels, because nobody in their right mind, painting the image of the Messiah, would have written such a phrase. They wanted to make it absolutely clear, which is why they recorded it in his original tongue, that that's precisely what he said. And that's precisely what's going on in our times. How many of us, deep inside of our own hearts, as we're drawn further and further into this darkness, as we feel like we're coming already, even with time to come, to the end of our own ropes, as we feel that those around us are caving in, as we feel that we're caving in on ourselves. Some of us have even experienced physical loss because The future's in question, and there's this great fear and anxiety amidst all of us, and we wonder where God is in all of this. And so with us, and so our cry collectively goes out with the cry of Jesus Christ, and we say, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you forsaken us? Thomas Halleck, I think is how you pronounce his name, who's a priest and a theologian, says that the scriptural phrase, my God, why have you abandoned me, and the creedal statement that Jesus ascended into hell are essentially one and the same. Because it describes a God who goes so far into our human depravity, so far into the hell that we live here on earth, and maybe even in eternity, I'll leave that one open, so far to prove to us that he cannot leave us behind, which is why this question of Jesus is so important, because it paints the image of a God who seemingly has gone, according to the scriptures, to the razor's edge of his own self-forgetfulness to promise us that there is no hell in this world that he cannot recover us from. And this is what the cross is all about. And so on this week of the Passion, as we enter more deeply into the Lord's Passion, and we cry out, my God, why have you abandoned me? We enter into the mystery of this infinite God who is also so deeply close to us. This God of the universe, this transcendent God who is also willing to be hung on a cross so that we could never, ever escape his love. Good Friday will come in a few days, and maybe I've ruined it to some degree already. But until then, we look at the cross, and you might not be able to see it in this video, and we see this God who's gone so far into our own hell to assure us that we are never, ever alone in any of this. There's all sorts of gods in this world, lowercase g's. There's idols, there's different images of gods, all over the place. But if I had to worship a God, I would take the crucified God any day of the week and twice on Sundays, because that is a God who insists that he enters into my own human frailty, into my own human struggles, and into my own hell. A God who has crossed the gates of hell and has gone to his furthest capabilities to redeem humanity. This is the God that I worship, and this is the God that can give us hope in this time. And so if anything at all makes sense in these tragic times, or in any of the tragic times of our lives, we can look into the future. We all face human tragedy, and we all face despair and desolation and sadness. And we all have times we are so grief-stricken, we don't even know how we're going to go on. The only thing that makes sense in these times is a God who is crucified on our behalf. And so when we come to the cross, as I said, on Good Friday, until then, may we spring forward in this Holy Week with great hope, because the cross paints the perfect image of a God who can never, ever leave us behind. Jesus cries out, my God, why have you abandoned me? The answer is that he hasn't, and he quite literally never can. But still, that cry goes out. Allow yourself this Holy Week to have that cry echoed in the very depths of your heart, and then allow God to answer. Explore this cry of, my God, why have you forsaken me? And you will come into true faith. We will come into what true faith is about. A faith that worships a crucified God, and a faith that longs to penetrate this infinite mystery of God. Dare to ask the difficult questions. Dare to have your faith challenged. It'll lead you directly to the cross, and in the cross is the hope of the kingdom to come. May God's love be with you always, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a very blessed and fruitful Holy Week.